Hi, everyone. It's Judith Briles, and we're back for another New Year's episode of the Author You, Your Guide to Book Publishing podcast. And this month's been a great month. We spent some time with John Kramer, actually on two sessions, one on just strategies for going forward for the new year, as well as how to deal with the Google monster, which is becoming more monstrous almost on a daily part. And then I opened it up just with Your Words Matter and where we go. Well, we're going to continue with kind of Your Words Matter, but we're going to be speaking to the unpublished author, the aspiring author in this session. And as always, I like to start with a quote from my little book, The Snappy, Sassy, Salty Success for Authors and Writers. And I think I'm just going to start with that. Writers should start on their books before they're ready. Otherwise, they can spend their time getting ready in perpetuity. With me is one of our favorite podcast guests that frequently is she's with us. Mara Purl is the author of so many books in the romance area. The fiction is her expertise. She is multiple, and I'm not talking about 5 or 10, 15 or 20, 30 or 40, like 70 book awards. She is a fellow author laureate, so I'm pleased to share that honor with her. And that we have done so many ventures for authors, of which earlier this month we did 60 tips and 90 minutes for authors for their success for 2026. Well, this one, we're going to be talking about the aspiring author, the author who's not been published. 80% of the published in America, authors, individuals in America thinks there's a book in them. And I often say, should it be allowed out? Well, Mara and I are founders of the Colorado Authors Hall of Fame. And a couple of years ago, we bubbled up with the idea, why don't you do a special scholarship program for aspiring authors? And that's evolved. And we're going to walk it through with you today, how to participate if you are an unpublished author, if you're over 21, if you're connected to Colorado in some way. We're going to go through all the requirements that you can maybe jump on. And I'm also going to give you a website for look for some other options if you want to write, but you're not corrected with Colorado. I'm going to give you a tip on where to venture down that rabbit hole and where to go. But with that, let me just say welcome, Mara. I'm loving having you back today.
Oh, thank you, Judith. This is always a pleasure, and it's really fun for us to talk about one of our very favorite subjects. You and I believe in mentoring, and we
Yeah.
believe in paying it back and also in
Mhm.
paying it forward.
Mhm.
And so every author has a journey, and we usually talk about that journey that begins when you are ready to publish. But there's an earlier chapter. And we've been, the last couple of years, reaching into that arena and addressing mostly young people, but really they could be of any age, who have
Mhm.
experienced
Yep.
that feeling, that sense that, I think I'm supposed to write a book. And we believe if you get that tap on the shoulder to pay attention to it and consider starting to take steps. It's not an easy path, but it may be a very important one for you.
Well, I think that, when you mentioned the age, we do have an age range. It starts at 21. You need to be 21. All right. Um, but is there an upside of how old you have to? No. I
No.
mean, I remember one year a woman who was 78 applied for the scholarship. So there is no gender consideration. The only age consideration is you need to be over 21, because we're going to be making an investment in each winner. And Mara and I put huge amounts of time in it. Besides, they get cash, but they get this full-blown academy that's been created that Mara masterminds, and works through. So we're going to get into that. So before I go any further, I want to give you all, and I'll repeat it a couple of times, that where you get the details and what we're talking about is this is the website to go to. It's Colorado Authors, and that's plural, an S, Hall of Fame.org. And you'll see right on a headliner tab, scholarships. That's where you start, right? That there is no entry fee to pay for this. So this is kind of like our gift, Mara's and my, the brainstorming gift we came up to aspiring authors who have never been published. So I want to be very clear about that. This is for the newbies. We're looking for newbies who have a dream of making it go forward. So, Mara, let's go through some of the those requirements. 21, I already gave that. Breathing would be a good idea.
Well, the connection to Colorado is important, but there are different ways to be connected here. One is
Mm-hmm.
that you live here or have lived here. Another is that you wrote something here that hasn't yet been published, or you have written about Colorado, which of course we assume that means you have visited here and you've done some research here to write about this extraordinary state. So there has to be, considering this is being run by the Colorado Authors Hall of Fame, we do require a connection to the state.
Mm-hmm. So fiction or nonfiction, doesn't matter. 21 is our mark. Um, a current resident. This is for current residents. I need to throw that on the plate. On this is very important. And this is where we get young people. So I think our youngest one that won a year ago was, or 2 years ago. We do this every other year, by the way. So this is an even year. 2026 is when we will be awarding these scholarships in the fall. Actually, it'll be on September 11th. We already have a contracted date. We do a lovely luncheon to honor each of you, and you speak. We want to hear about you, what your plans are, where you're going to go. And that's where it starts. So, what do you have to do to submit? Well, there's two things we ask for. This is really the easy peasy part. One, we want you to write an essay on what you plan on doing with your scholarship, and why you write, why you want to write, why you want to publish. And then the second part is this is where it gets fun because it's the sampling. We need to see at least 20 pages of your writing, maybe the manuscript you're working on, anything like that. And it always brings up interesting dialogue between the different judges. They get very opinionated. Mara, you want to kiss on some of the things because you've been involved in some of those discussions.
Well, we look for originality.
Mm-hmm.
We look for a point of view. We look for a sense of your vision as an author, what you're looking at, and what you want us to see, whether it has to do with fiction, a very interesting story with plot points and interesting characters, or whether it might be memoir, some extraordinary experience that you have had that you want to share, that you feel compelled to share. It could be a nonfiction work about a business or travel. So the subject matter, we're wide open. But what we want to hear from you is something we haven't heard before. I can't stress enough that originality, particularly in this world where we're running into copycats, we're running into AI. We need to really focus on authenticity. Who are you really? And what do you really want to share? I think that's some of the important things we look for.
Mara, I'm so glad you said the AI word, letters. Okay, so what that means is this is not AI generated, that
That's
you're
not
not going to go,
acceptable at all.
not acceptable. You're not going to go in and prompt a bunch of different ideas and see what it whips up. We will know.
Mhm.
We can tell.
Yeah, we have
Um,
great judges and they know what to look for in AI generated material. AI is a whole topic which we do deal with during the mentoring program because it's very important, but realize that it's a double-edged sword. And at this point, as you are creating your work, it is not appropriate to lean on AI at all.
no, this is called originality, your imagination, all of that. That's what we're really looking for. And it would make sense to make sure whatever you submit doesn't have typos in it. You've done some cleanup before we see it because you will get dinged. The judges will ding on that kind of stuff. So it's presenting as you go through it. Mara, let's talk about some of the authors who have become published authors under the program. This will be our third reveal. And by the way, we do five. We can go up to five authors. They will win a scholarship, and it's worth about $17,000. That includes cash, as well as the value that we put on the 1 year mentoring academy. And Mara and I are huge on mentoring. We do spend a lot of time reaching our hands out across the cyber channels, sometimes in person, with these individuals who have won. So, does anyone jump out that you can remember,
I
Mara?
mean, I want to mention two authors right away. One
Mm-hmm.
is Jilly Jennings,
Mm-hmm.
outstanding, and the other is Julia Jackson, also outstanding. Now, these two authors could not be more different, and yet we
Mm-hmm.
are so impressed with each of them for different reasons. You know, Jilly had a real background in working with children and saw something that didn't exist in the marketplace for writing for children. And so
Mm-hmm.
she has created not only a book, but a program that I think is so exciting for very young children and for their parents. It's just, we've been thrilled to work with her all the way
Mm-hmm.
along the way.
And she's just writing some fabulous illustrations. And when Mara says children, we're talking about the under 5-year-olds
Hmm.
in this, and her deep experience in communication skills. The other thing she's bringing to the party that certainly got my attention because I was one of the judges for her was that she planned on doing them bilingual, her whole series bilingual, which is, absolutely smart. And it opens you up when you are published to the library market because they're looking for these kind of books all the time.
Yeah, her books and her programs that go along with her books and her speaking, um, it's been wonderful to help her really achieve some key goals and help her with launching. So we'll always stay in touch with
Hmm.
her
Hmm.
and follow her career. And then Julia brought this talk about original. She wrote about a group of women in the desert. So it's a kind of wonderful girlfriend kind of story, but
Hmm.
it's also, uh, there was just, her voice was unique. And she was drawing upon, she herself grew up in New Mexico and now lives in Colorado. And she drew on her experiences and her resources um, to bring a very, very fresh voice to it's women's fiction. It's almost memoir too. It was very unique.
With a kiss of what I call chicklet. So,
Yes,
you know,
yes,
so so you've got the girlfriend thing going on there. Then I'm going to add one other is Zaida Amador,
yes,
who has a
fantastic.
remarkable story. So her book, and she has completed her first draft during this year. She completed her first draft. Now she's into the rewrites and the editing, which is like sometimes, oh my God, I gotta go. I thought I was done. No, no,
No,
you're not.
yeah, we know
And
that process so well.
yeah, her mama walked over 2,700 miles with three little ones. Some one had to be carried, the other were walkable, but little on that 2,700 miles to get to the United States.
Yeah.
She has gone on to become a citizen. She got thrown into the foster system when all of a sudden her mother disappeared. No one just disappeared, and the kids and the kids were all split up. So she's never been able to see her siblings since then. But she survived. She survived, and she has now written it all up. And it's I find she is now a corporate officer in a healthcare organization, which kind of fits who she is and what she's
Hmm.
about. But she has her story is one of survival. It's one of resilience. It's one of persistence. So when Mar was talking about the children's book, about the girlfriend book using their own experiences, or what I shared about Zaida, and these are just the recent crop, three of the five, that it's we never know what's going to land on our in front of our eyes. And so it's very chewy. There in the judges, you might wonder who's judging. Well, there are some other authors, very accomplished authors, who are judging, reading in that. We have a few librarians in the mix. We have a couple of editors in the mix that are looking at that style, and the arcing and things of those, especially for fiction. We had a lot of fiction this go around. No, we had a mix. This last year was a mix, almost half and half,
Yeah,
fiction and
with Zaida's
nonfiction.
memoir. But then we
Yeah,
have Janice Corbell and her wonderful paranormal
right.
fantasy, romantasy, a genre in which she has a lot of expertise. Um, and we found not only does she know what she's doing as a writer, but she's
Eh,
been so willing to really dig in and learn about marketing. And the
which is
deep dive,
important.
it's
Yeah.
so important. And there are a lot of people writing in her genres, and she is so undaunted, um,
Mhm.
showing up for every program and really working hard. We admire that. We appreciate it.
Well, it does make a difference because we want to help you. We want you to succeed in doing that. And I think that all of you who are aspiring authors need to understand sometimes it's a lonely place to be. You're not sure which way you're going to go, or things are not just coming together. And you just are you nuts? I had a conversation earlier this morning with someone saying, I don't know if I can pull this next book out. So it's pep talk time. I get that. Do
Oh,
that.
we all need that. I mean, that's the thing too, that when you win this scholarship, you are joining a community of authors. You and I know the author endeavor is so lonely. It's just you and the screen or the page in front of you. And then you get to connect with other authors and hear about their journeys, learn from them, maybe share something that they would like to learn from you. And then you're not alone. It's a
Mhm,
fantastic asset. We don't even advertise that part of it so much, but there are your
mhm, mhm,
salons that they now have access to. There are events. Um, some of the events are super snaz, like our annual gala of inducting very accomplished authors into the Hall of Fame. And that's every other year on the odd year. And then, of course, the luncheon where these new authors are welcomed and given their scholarships. You can just see and feel the joy and the sense of, phew, I've got a support team that I didn't know I'd ever have. That's
mhm,
what they get.
mhm. Who is available quickly. I mean, when we get a call from one of them, whether it's a text that comes through, a phone call, or an email, one of the teams is on it very quickly to reach out. What do
Yeah.
you need? What can we do to move you forward? Mara, let's talk about the academy that we've put together, the Mentoring Academy. What was when you were thinking about laying out that what we were going to do each month?
Well, I wanted a really great program that in 1 year, once a month, would step our authors through some of the most important elements of really becoming a professional author. And for that, I turned first to our own board members, many of whom
Mhm.
are so accomplished and already provide excellent programs. And so we have Doug Gilbert, for example. I invited him to do a session on research. Wow. Uh, this is something at the sort of the PhD level. It's not just you're going to do a Google search. No, no. There are ways to do deep dives into subjects, and authors who take the time and know how to do that wind up with books at an entirely different level. And
Mhm.
so that's just one of the several programs that we offered. We had Kevin Anderson, a very accomplished author himself, who gave a session, very interesting session on obstacles that authors face, rejection, the really, we don't shy away from this. We're not just going to sort of say it's all sunshine and flowers. This is a tough road. And so we had Kevin offer, I think, a very valuable session. One of my favorite
It was
sessions,
fun. It was
yeah,
so, yeah,
it
Mara,
was.
it was so much fun with him, because he really did open up, and he got into his own failures, and the reveals when you get these authors on here who are coming on as author experts in it, whatever the topic is we're working on. Mara came up with let's get into obstacles, and then things like that. When he came in to his, Kevin Anderson, if you don't know him, it's Kevin J. Anderson. If you've ever been in a movie theater or if you're in the fantasy sci-fi area, you will know him. He is now the co-author of all the ongoing Dune books,
Right.
you know, plus other stuff. But he talked about how he had been rejected. He has an award. It was actually given at a writing conference. He has over 700 rejections for his work when he was trying to break into a publisher. 700. How many of us really are going to come up to bat? Do we want to come up to bat and get knocked down? Come up to bat and get knocked down. He
Yeah.
did it over 700 times
His
before it
persistence
hit.
and some kind of, clarity about what
Mhm,
he knew he could offer. He stuck with that.
mhm,
One of my favorite sessions that you do is
mhm.
the business of publishing. It's how to get yourself organized to begin with. Where do you put all your files? Uh, I remember a tech working on my computer one time and saying, but you have over 100,000 files. And I'm like, yeah, I'm an author. Of course I do. So what are you going to do? How are you going to find those files? How are you going to have access to them? So this is sort of its nitty gritty, the physical organization of your files, the digital placement of them, so that you're not stopped. You can, if you don't know how to do this, you can kind of end up creating your own obstacles. And we don't
Oh,
want
yeah.
that.
Barriers and potholes,
Yeah.
of you get lost. I mean, one of the biggest reveals I think when I share is that, um, from even how you title a file, even how you do all the subsets
Yes. Oh, yes. Very
of
important.
the organization of folders. You may have your book itself could have 20 different folders, of which inside there's another 10 or 20 files, and even other subfolders, but they're they're in a home that they become findable versus invisible. And that's one of the biggest problems that we see.
Yeah.
One of the other big problems, and I want to for all of you aspiring authors, is to, if you don't get into the habit from the get-go of getting a date, and I never put a date at the end of a file title. It is right up front. It's right
Oh,
up
it's so
front.
helpful. Yeah.
Because it's one of the most common boo-boos is they keep reworking a file that should have been considered old and put into an old folder. And that after it's gone to an editor or someone, they keep going back to the old thing, and you keep redoing this thing over and over and over and over and over
And
again.
this is where you get what is called introduced errors. So something
Introduced
has,
errors. I
yeah,
love that phrase, Mara.
yeah. It's, you've already edited or had this chapter is now draft 5. But unfortunately, you reach into your filing system and you start working on draft 3. And old things that were already corrected now become these introduced errors. It's the bane. And there's nothing worse than receiving a fresh box of books, your new book, and you open that book and you smell the aroma of the new pages, and oh my gosh, there's a typo. Oh, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And so we have ways to help you never have that happen.
Yeah, and sometimes the typo is going to be the least of the problems. It's
Well,
whole
there's that.
whole sections that were deleted, and all
Yeah,
of a sudden they're back, and you're
they're back.
thinking, how could that have happened?
Yeah, it's
Um,
heartbreaking. It's
on
heartbreaking.
that,
Yeah, we don't want that to happen to any
yeah.
of you. And then,
So I was just going to say, it's that whole section I do on the business is building the infrastructure for your publishing,
and it's for
and
your
then
career, it's for your
yeah,
life.
yeah.
It's a
The other
real,
thing the other thing, Mara, I go into is the whole dollars and cents of it. This is what it's going to cost. Let's do a reality check
mhm.
on it, and we do a breakdown. Okay, so if your dream is to get published by a New York connected house, one of the big five or one of its subsets of the big five, this is the path you have to go through. There is a path you've got to embark
Definitely.
on. And this is what you will probably make if you get picked up. And it's a reality check, and they're always in shell shock when they see the real numbers start rolling out. They're always in shell, but it's their dream, and I get that. I get that. One of my advantages for all of you is I started with New York. 18 of my books were with New York publishers, and then I decided to get a divorce, and I left it, and I have never looked back. Now we're 30 books later. I have never looked back
Yeah.
at it. But you need to understand what it's going to cost. And then if you say, okay, so if I self-published and Mara and I want to move you up from using that phrase, and it's you become an independent publisher, you're going to start learning the business. You're going to understand what makes it click, and tick, and ways that you can shortcut, but what you have to do to put the package together that makes it looks like when you have your finished book and you open that box and you smell it and you feel it and you do all those things, it looks like it came from a New York house.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of our
There's a
goals.
standard. Yeah. And we have a team that can help you,
Mhm.
really vet uh, every aspect. I remember sitting with someone who used to be a good friend of ours, Judith Marcella.
Mhm.
She was the head of the small press department at Barnes and Noble, and she was so good at her job, and she was such an advocate for authors. And I took her to lunch one day and I said, "What was the most exciting project that happened for you this year?" And she described it. And then I remember her with some reverence picking up a book and saying, "Look, a book needs to be a work of art from beginning to end. It's the cover design, it's the use of the gutter, the leading." She was using terms that I didn't even know at the time, you
I
know,
know.
uh, the font choice, the everything that goes into the colophon. What's a colophon? You know, there was such a learning curve, and I was so eager. This was my, if you will, this was my master's degree or my PhD. I spoke with people on Marcella's level, took notes, went to endless webinars, seminars, you know, read books, anything that I could do to really understand that there's compliance when you are going to go for publishing excellence. Now, the self world does not concern itself whatsoever with this compliance. It's simply a speedy way to get a book out there. We don't recommend it. We will do everything we can to convince you not to go that route, but rather to choose independent publishing. We don't want you to wear all the hats. We have people who design, you know, and people who edit, and this is what they do. This is their career. They're great at it. We want to put you with a wonderful team like that, leaving you free to do what you do, which is
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
it's a mindset, and really it's pretty much the same, many of the same steps, whether you end up with a New York publisher or with an independent publisher. I mean, think in the film world. You have films coming out of the big studios, and then you have independent films. One isn't better than the other. They're equally terrific. They're different. They come from a different mindset, but in the end, they're being presented to you on a level of excellence.
Mhm.
That's what we want to do with books.
And, my Marcella story was I was back in New York sitting down and we were at at what they called Book Expo at the time.
Oh, yes, Book Expo, how I miss it.
We were at VA. It's huge. This is huge. And we were sitting, one of the uh, publishers had a corner booth, but it was a double. They had little tables and chairs. And Mara said, let's just go sit over here. Come on, let's go sit over here. And all of a sudden, I noticed that her eyeballs literally were scanning all this publisher's cover arts on the L shape of the booth, and she was going through and she said to me, Judith, I would buy this book for this for and this is we're talking Barnes and Noble, all right. I would
Yep.
get this one and I would get this one. And I would skip the next three. I would get this one and this one. I said, so what are you seeing? What's your decision? And she walked through the process, which brings me to one of the sessions, which was all about design, how important the
Yes.
design of your book is, how your cover is so important. And if I would think of anything that separates the self-publishers from the more independent professional publishers. It would start with the cover. It would go into the inside, and then of course you have the editing or lack of editing and all that. But that Mara, for those of you who are not familiar with Mara's book, there is always lighthouses in them, and I always like to use the lighthouse as the metaphor. It's the pull in. Wait a minute, I'm here. You better pay attention. Stop. Stop. And how important that cover is in getting into that and having someone who really understands book design and the elements that have to go and or be eliminated. Because one of the problems we see with a lot of people, especially newbie authors, is they want to. There's all these key elements from their story, and they think they should all be on the cover. And the answer is no, no, no. Less is more
Yeah.
um, on that. And I know when we set the stage for them, Mara usually does the instruction of sending them off. We send them to a bookstore. That's their very first
Very
session.
first assignment. And it's so exciting.
Mhm.
Go into a bookstore and go into your local library and really look at those book covers and those sections in a way that you never have before. We have some specific instruction for what you're looking for. and you
Mhm,
come home with this expanded awareness. After all,
mhm,
your book is going to be joining this array. And where is it going to fit exactly? And
mhm.
how? And this is where the teaching begins.
Or will it fit? Will it stand above the masses? One of the problems is there's the competition. There are so many books out there that you've got to. That's why that cover has to be that magnet. Come to me. With that.
Certainly does. It certainly does. I had a lovely experience. There's a big library system in the Central Coast of California, which is where my stories are set.
Mhm.
And I went into the main library, and do you know they had my books facing forward as they are on the shelf behind me?
How lovely.
Wow. That was a big that was a big deal. What they were saying was these covers work. They invite the reader and they represent our region. I think maybe that's part of the reason why some of my books have won regional book awards.
Mhm.
So connecting, your book doesn't exist, just off in space. It exists in a context, and we help you with that. Like, where do your books belong? How will you reach your readers? You don't have to reach all readers, and you won't be able
Mm-mm.
to anyway. You want
No,
to
you
reach
can't.
your readers. And so that's another thing we help authors find is who is your reader?
Well, I think one of the important things, I just as a side note, I do a private coaching group every Friday morning, early in the morning. And, I may pose it with a question. I may have exercises. I may have, okay, here's some cool tools. We're going to go through them. Sometimes I've been really working and I said, okay, we're playing today. I've got play tools for us today. And one of the questions which so hit them, and I mentioned it in a program that Mara was one of my co-presenters with on the five W's. But the first one was just, why are you writing? And to really understand why you are writing. And that's where that essay that you have to do to submit for the scholarship. Now I'm going to mention the website again, the Colorado Authors Hall of Fame.org. And it's open now. It'll be open through February for submission, and then it closes. And I don't care if you get it in 2 days later, it's over. You got to get it in, this
So this is the
essay
moment.
in your
This is the
sampling.
moment to
Yeah.
apply.
Yeah. So that's why I said, Mara, can you join me? Let's do a podcast so people will hear about it, and bring that in.
And get
So that
excited about it.
Yeah, well, I get excited about it because it's new faces, and it actually gives us new enthusiasm too. Oh, we can remember when we were first writing our first book. Uh,
You bet.
that no
Absolutely.
one no one told us there were more books, but anyway, those come.
Right.
But so
Right.
it's Colorado Authors Hall of Fame.org, and if you click on the scholarship tab, it walks you right through what you need to know about it, how you submit, and it's done all on what's called a jot form. And you attach your essay and you attach your sample and you get it in. Now, I will tell you, sometimes people say, I've done an update on what I submitted. Can I resubmit it? And if you do it before the deadline, the answer is yes. But that's when you need to contact contact me directly and say, yep, so I can give you the okay to do that. Anyway, so I love the first session when we send them into the bookstores because they are on the search. They're on the search. In fact, they're also told, hey, say hello to the manager, meet the manager and the assistant manager, and let them know that you're local, wherever you're local, and you have that coming in, which always makes a huge difference in this process. And so I'm
One of
also,
the one of the sessions I enjoy giving is about core values. And this ties back to authenticity and originality. I think you'll find when you're writing your submission, this is where you need to go mentally. what do you really believe and believe in? Because this will fuel your writing and ultimately fuel your career and your book signings and your speeches that you give about your book.
Exactly.
It's, we create an author declaration and we look at some of the values that
Mm.
we believe that we may not totally be aware of. So it's a very interesting session. And this, in a way, comes
Yes.
back to AI. The
Yep.
problem with using generative AI to write something for you is that you miss your own mental process and you therefore miss out finding who you are and what you have to say to the world
Hmm. Hmm.
and to yourself. We wouldn't want you to miss out on that. It's so important and so exciting. So, and speaking of AI again, we did do a great session last time
We
with
did.
experts because there are two kinds of AI. There's the kind of AI that is helpful. There are some excellent tools that are legitimate. And then there's this generative AI. And in case you don't know this, it is based on stolen property. These systems
Hmm.
scrape existing manuscripts, steal copyrighted works, and use it to train their AIs. That's why the Authors Guild, of which Judith and I are both members, has a tremendous lawsuit which was won against Anthropic that now has to pay $1.5 billion to authors from whom they stole. I know because I've received my paperwork. I was one of the authors whose works were stolen to train AI. We don't want this. It's not good for anyone. So we want to help you find out what are some legitimate, useful AI tools, and then how to avoid the terrible pitfall
Hmm.
of generative AI.
Because it's there. And also, what Mara's not saying, if you use generative AI, your work is not copyrightable.
That's
You will
correct.
not be able to register it for copyright. And you know, that's scary.
Yeah.
So, something to think
Important,
about on
important
that. All
stuff.
right. Now, Mara, you did a really great session, I thought, and then a couple of sessions that were absolutely essential. One was involved in writing and character development and how to really bring it all together. And then I did one on marketing. Let's start with the writing.
Well, again, I think it's great to do a deep dive into
Hmm.
creating characters. One of my sessions, I deal with two key elements that I think speak to head and heart. The head session, we can call it that. Um,
Why not?
why not? Um, I work on Myers-Briggs. Now, a lot of us
Uh-huh.
have done Myers-Briggs or a different personality test, but how about doing it on your characters?
I
It
know, so fun.
becomes a fascinating tool. One of the things I've noticed with younger writers who have less life experience as yet, sometimes the characters end up being rather similar to each other. So, this is a tool to absolutely fix that. So, let's say you have an intuitive and a judger. An intuitive person trusts their intuition. They're interested in all kinds of new possibilities, where a judger wants the facts right in front of them. Maybe you have two characters who are partners as police officers. Well, if you make one an intuitive and one a judger, now you've got this difference between them that creates a little frisson of conflict, and it can also help solve a case. So it really enhances your writing. So it's a whole session with really looking at characters from this personality profiling program. Then the other side of this is more the heart. And what we deal with is color. And it's just fascinating. Do you have a favorite color? You probably do. Well, how does it show up? Is it, it's your purse, it's your car, it's the wall of your office? How do you use that color? Well, now let's turn it around and use it on your characters. Maybe you have a character who wears only black, can't stand to wear any other color whatsoever. And that says something about that character. Maybe you have someone who loves walking into a room with a big dash of red. Well, that also shows up in their, let's say, extroverted, highly expressive character. So working through a manuscript or a list of characters in your work and using these techniques, you'll find you enrich your manuscript tremendously. It's really fun, but it also helps you find your own voice and originality.
Which is so critical. And then the other critical element, in fact, I haven't even told Mara what I'm going to be. I'm creating a new 4-week, how, soaring your book marketing course. And this is the marketing is your secret sauce. It's the one that you're gonna, I can't tell you how many newbie authors I've worked with, but I've spent all this money. I've already done this. I can't do anything more. I just can't. And I can't be trite and say get over it. You've got to really plan ahead that marketing is part of this overall deal. Now, there's lots of things you can do for free. And I am a huge believer that the single best marketer is the author, because you know your stuff, right? You wrote it.
You've been
Uh,
living with it for a long time. You know it
yeah,
best.
yes. And sometimes we forget how well we know it, that we bring it to the party and then some little trigger happens and, oh, yeah, wait a sec. And it comes about, but marketing is so essential to go forward to figure out that the tools, there's lots of freebie tools. It was great when I started writing, which was over 40 years ago. Oh my gosh. Um, that that the internet wasn't there. Email wasn't there. Digital marketing, no such phrase existed. What consisted of is trying to get on maybe a TV show or get maybe on interviewing on a radio show, or maybe your local paper would pick it up if they had local papers in that. But back in those days, there was a high level of snobbery that for anyone who tried to do this themselves. You don't have that kind of obstacle to hit. But if you don't create a book that looks like it could have come out of New York on the outside with that cover design that Mara, you see what Mara has behind her, several of her books. You can see that it's a family. She's got a family behind her in her writing, that there is a consistency to it, and it's a very plan to it. Mara has quite an extensive planning that she does when she settles in with each new writing encounter. So, what's important for you is you got to have a plan. And that's really
Absolutely.
what's important. And that's why we start that off with the mentoring institute for everybody is that we're going to do this plan and go together, and we're going to take you through whether it's the business side of it, whether it's the developing awesome characters that create page turners for you as you go along if you're writing in the fiction line, whether it's dealing with it's you're going to crumple up the paper and toss it because it's not working, or ever felt like throwing the computer across the room. I know a lot of authors that feel that way. So this is what this is, going through, and you learn it, and it just makes such a huge difference. And that's really what we're after, to making this work for you. So I'm excited. I would love to have everyone come forward, and say, "Oh, I'm going to get into this." The odds are good. If you write a decent, if you can catch our attention and do it, you'll be amazing. Let's go back to the judging side of it. The judges became advocates for some of the candidates, really open advocates for some of the candidates. It's like
Yes.
Mara, Mara mentioned Jilly and I knew Jilly because Jilly started showing up before she ever applied. She started showing up. She would see Mara and I at book signing events in Barnes and Noble stores. She would observe what we were doing. She would watch us. She would ask questions. She joined a group here in Colorado that I do on a Saturday, the second Saturday of every month, and she'd come and absorb, interact with other authors, take advantage of that free. We're talking
Yeah.
free
She
stuff.
was really doing her homework.
She was doing all her homework.
Yeah.
And that as soon as I saw what she was doing, her example, and I thought, I am going to do everything I can to make sure she becomes one of these winners to do that. Luckily, all the other judges felt the same way.
Oh, absolutely. What's not to like? Such a good writer and a wonderful, serious person, to
Yeah,
work with. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, we had
So
an outstanding group. We're very proud of them. And we
for
know
this
now that
last year,
their careers are launched.
huh? And they all want to do it. So it comes back to um, apply. Go on the website, Colorado Authors, a Hall of Fame. Click on it. Look at what you have to do to create an essay of why you want to write. What would you do with it? And do a submission, and then let's see what happens with it. Because it's fun. You get involved in so many activities. It was very cool to see all our authors all dressed up. Mara mentioned the gala that we do for the induction of a dozen new authors every other year. And they were all dressed to the nines. I guess that's a phrase we can pull back.
You
Uh,
bet. And looking fabulous and so excited and rubbing shoulders with some of the major authors of our day who were
mhm,
there to receive, induction into
mhm,
the Hall of Fame. I mean, it was a
mhm.
fabulous. And then I know one of our authors has become very good at her social media posting, and she posted a fabulous little reel on Instagram about the whole event. I thought, good for
Very
her.
cool.
Yep,
Mhm.
she's doing her marketing.
And one of our authors who we inducted into the Hall of Fame this past September was the number one best-selling fiction author in America.
Isn't
And that
that
was Rebecca
extraordinary?
Yaros, which is extraordinary. Colorado-based author.
Yeah. No,
So,
we had quite a group of inductees, as we always do.
and we do. So, again, I encourage you to get involved. Mara and I look forward to seeing what comes in and just make a huge difference for you and the next step forward. And it's a big step. This is a big commitment because
It
if you win
is.
yeah, if you win one of the scholarships, our expectations are that you will be showing up, and you will get it out, and there is actually no reason why you couldn't be published within a year, which I
Yeah.
love.
Yeah. It's thrilling. And when you join us, you won't be alone.
Yeah, exactly. So we gave you the Hall of Fame event, Colorado Authors, halloffame.org. Get signed up. I want to give Mara's website, Mara Purl, MARAPURL.com. She writes a wonderful newsletter. Strongly encourage you to um, uh, jump on it.
Thank you.
Even learning the word of the month or the day or whatever we're going to do.
Well, we love words, so it's good to play with them.
We do. And of course, I have a newsletter off of the Book Shepherd, and we are starting a Substack. also newsletters, so that's off and running.
Oh, if you
So
become a Judith follower, there's so
yeah,
much that she will show you and teach you. She will open so many doors for you.
well,
Really
thank
take
you.
advantage.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mara, for being with me for
Thank
the
you.
hour.
It was a joy.
Good luck to all of you and happy writing, and join us next week for another new podcast.